I've been holding this inside for a while now, but it's time someone hears my story. My name is Matthew, and what's been happening to me in this house? It's beyond anything I ever imagined. Let me start from the beginning. I just moved into this new place, a modest house in a quiet town. It's close to my high school, and I thought this would be a fresh start. My mom, she's all about new beginnings, always dragging us from one place to another. But this place, it's different. We're right next to a church with an old cemetery, and behind the house is nothing but an empty, eerie cow pasture that seems to stretch into the void. From the moment I stepped inside, I felt it, that oppressive weight in the air, the kind that clings to your skin like smoke. The first night was unsettling. Sure, I thought it was just nerves. Moving is always stressful, and I figured the unease was just me adjusting to a new environment. But no, that night was the beginning of something darker, something that's been gnawing at me ever since. I couldn't sleep. It wasn't just the creaks and groans of the house settling. It was the feeling of being watched. And then there were the handprints. Tiny, childlike handprints on my TV screen. At first, I thought maybe it was dirt from the move, but then I saw them again the next day. And outside my window, the same prints, pressed into the glass. We don't have kids coming around here. It's just me and my mom. Every night, the noises get worse. Footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate, as if someone, or something, is dragging itself along. I've heard crying, soft and muffled, like a child lost in the dark. My boyfriend, James, stayed over one night. He's not the type to scare easily, but even he couldn't handle it. He ended up dragging his mattress into my room because he swore he heard footsteps outside his door, heavy and deliberate. He tried to laugh it off, but I could see it in his eyes. He was terrified. Last week was when things escalated. I was in my room, trying to distract myself with some YouTube videos. But the feeling of being watched? It's constant now, like an itch I can't scratch. My room has a small closet, and inside, I keep this old TV projector. It's nothing fancy, just something I used to mess around with. But that night, I heard it. A loud crash. When I opened the closet, the projector was on the floor, shattered. It wasn't like it had fallen. It looked like it had been hurled with force. The pieces were scattered, some even a few feet away from where it landed. I told my mom about all of this, but she just brushes it off. She thinks I'm imagining things, or worse, trying to get out of living here. But she doesn't feel what I feel. She doesn't hear the whispers late at night, the ones that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. She doesn't see the shadows that dart just out of sight, or the way the lights flicker when I walk past. I've started keeping a journal, writing everything down. Maybe it's just to prove to myself that I'm not crazy. Or maybe it's something darker, a record for whoever finds it after, well, after whatever happens next. Because I can't shake the feeling that this house wants something from me. And I'm starting to wonder if I'm willing to give it. This is just the beginning. There's so much more to tell, and it's only getting worse. I'll keep you updated as things unfold, but for now, I'll leave you with this. Be careful where you call home. Sometimes, it's not just walls and a roof. Sometimes, it's alive. The days that followed weren't much better. If anything, the house seemed angrier, more insistent. It's as if it knew I was aware of it, and now it wanted to make sure I wouldn't forget. One morning, I woke up to find the kitchen in chaos. Cabinet doors were flung open, their contents spilled across the floor. Plates shattered, glasses tipped over, and utensils scattered everywhere. It was a mess that screamed rage. My mom thought it was me, accusing me of throwing some kind of tantrum. I didn't bother arguing. What would I even say? That the house did it? She'd just roll her eyes and tell me to get over myself. But the worst was yet to come. I started noticing scratches on the walls, faint at first, like something sharp had been dragged lightly across the paint. But each day, they grew deeper, more jagged, spelling out something. I can't quite make it out yet, but it's there. Words clawed into the plaster, desperate to be read. Then there's the basement. I try to avoid it as much as possible. The air down there is colder, heavier, like it's pressing down on you. But last Thursday, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I'd heard a loud bang, like something heavy had fallen. When I went to investigate, I found a trail of dirt leading from the basement door. It was as if someone had dragged something, or someone, out of there. But when I looked inside, it was empty. Just the same cold, damp space it's always been. Still, I swear I felt eyes on me, watching from the shadows. That night, I had a dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream at all. I was lying in bed, unable to move, the room bathed in an unnatural red glow. I saw them then, the figures. Shadowy, indistinct, but unmistakably there. They surrounded my bed, their hollow eyes staring down at me. One of them leaned in close, so close I could feel its breath, cold and rancid. It whispered something, a name maybe, but I couldn't understand it. When I woke up, my sheets were damp with sweat, and my chest ached like something had been sitting on it. James came over again, but this time he refused to stay the night. He'd barely stepped through the door when he froze, his face pale. "What's wrong?" I asked, but he just shook his head. "I'm sorry, Matt. I can't do this. There's something here, something wrong." And then he left, just like that. I can't blame him. If I had anywhere else to go, I'd leave too. The next morning, I noticed something new. My journal, the one I'd been keeping to document everything, had been tampered with. Pages were torn out, others scribbled over in what looked like blood. The words were frantic, desperate. "Get out. It's coming. You're not safe." I'm starting to wonder if there's a way to appease this thing, whatever it is. Maybe it wants something from me. Maybe it's been waiting all along for someone who could fulfill its needs. The thought terrifies me, but at the same time, I can't ignore it. I've started to feel less like a victim and more like a participant in whatever's unfolding here. And maybe that's the scariest part of all. I'll keep writing as long as I can. But if one day you find this and the entries stop, you'll know why. I think the house knows that I'm starting to understand. It's been louder lately, more insistent. Every night, the footsteps in the hallway grow heavier, closer. Sometimes, I'll hear my name whispered from the shadows, so soft I almost convince myself I imagined it. Almost. Last night, something new happened. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, too afraid to sleep. My door creaked open. Slowly, deliberately. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing as the air in the room turned icy cold. And then I saw it, a figure standing in the doorway. It was small, childlike, but its features were all wrong. Hollow eyes, a twisted smile that stretched too far across its face. It just stood there, watching me. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. My body refused to obey me. It took a step into the room, and then another. With each step, the air grew heavier, thicker, like I was drowning in it. Finally, it stopped at the foot of my bed. I could hear it breathing, shallow and raspy. And then it spoke. "Leave." Its voice was low, guttural, like it was speaking through a throat full of gravel. When I woke up, or maybe I never fell asleep, the figure was gone, but the feeling of dread lingered. My body ached, and there were bruises on my wrists, as if someone had grabbed me in the night. I don't know if I'm safe here anymore. Not that I ever was. I've started to explore the house more, hoping to find answers. There's a locked door in the basement that I've never noticed before. It's old, with rusted hinges and a handle that's ice cold to the touch. I asked my mom about it, but she just shrugged. "Probably storage," she said, not even bothering to look up from her phone. She's been distant lately, like she's not really here anymore. Maybe the house is getting to her too. I've been trying to find the key, but it's nowhere to be found. Last night, I had another dream, if that's what you can call it. In the dream, I was standing in front of the locked door. There was a key in my hand, old and ornate, the kind you'd expect to see in some gothic horror novel. The door swung open, and beyond it was darkness. Not just the absence of light, but a living, breathing darkness that seemed to pulse with malevolence. And then I woke up, my hand clutching at nothing but air. I'm scared to go back down there, but I can feel the door calling to me. It's like it's alive, waiting for me to open it. Maybe that's the answer to all of this. Or maybe it's just the beginning of something worse. Today, I found something strange in my room. A piece of paper, folded neatly and placed on my pillow. I didn't put it there, and I know my mom didn't either. The handwriting was jagged, like whoever wrote it was trembling. It said, "Don't open the door." I'm starting to think there's more than one force at work here. Something wants me to stay away from that door, but something else is pulling me toward it. I don't know which one to trust. All I know is that I can't keep living like this. I need answers, and if the house won't give them to me, I'll find them myself. I'll keep writing as long as I can. But I'm afraid the end is coming, and I don't know what side I'll end up on when it does. This will be my final entry. I couldn't resist the pull of that door any longer. It's been calling to me, louder and louder, until it's the only thing I can think about. Last night, I found the key. Or maybe it found me. It was sitting on my desk when I came home, as if it had always been there. Old, rusted, and impossibly cold, just like in my dream. I stared at it for hours, debating whether I should go through with it. But deep down, I already knew the answer. I was going to open that door. I had to. My mom wasn't home. She'd left a note saying she was staying with a friend for a few days. She didn't say why, but I could tell she was scared. Maybe she finally felt it too, the house pressing down on her. Or maybe she knew what I was about to do and didn't want to be here when it happened. I waited until midnight. Something about the darkness felt right, like it would give me the answers I needed. I took the key and made my way to the basement. Every step felt heavier than the last, the air growing colder with each one. When I reached the door, my hand trembled as I inserted the key. It turned easily, almost too easily, as if the door had been waiting for this moment. The door swung open, and the darkness beyond was just as I remembered from my dream. Alive, pulsating, almost hungry. It didn't feel like an empty space. It felt like stepping into the belly of some great, terrible beast. But I didn't hesitate. I stepped inside. The room was massive, far bigger than the house should have allowed. The walls were lined with shelves, each one filled with objects that seemed out of place and time. Old dolls with cracked faces, tarnished silverware, yellowed photographs of people I didn't recognize. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and on it sat a book. Its cover was made of something that looked like leather, but felt alive under my fingertips. The pages were filled with writing, but not in any language I could understand. The symbols twisted and writhed on the page, as if they were alive. As I stood there, the room began to hum. It started as a low vibration in my chest, then grew louder and louder until it was a deafening roar. The shadows around me began to move, converging toward the pedestal. I wanted to run, but my feet were rooted to the spot. The book's pages flipped on their own, faster and faster, until they stopped on a single page. The symbols glowed, and the hum turned into a voice. "Matthew," it said, using my name. "You have been chosen." Chosen for what? I managed to whisper, my voice trembling. To be the vessel. To carry our will into the world. I didn't understand what it meant, but I could feel it. A power, ancient and immense, filling the room and pressing into me. It wasn't asking for permission. It was taking what it wanted. The shadows engulfed me, and the last thing I remember was the feeling of something entering me, tearing through my mind and body like fire. When I woke up, I was back in my room. The key was gone, and the basement door was locked again. But I'm not the same. I can feel it inside me, a presence that's always watching, always whispering. Sometimes I hear its voice, telling me things, showing me things I don't want to see. But I can't stop it. I don't think I'm meant to. This house, this thing, it's not done with me. It's using me now, and I don't know how long I can fight it. Maybe I don't want to fight it anymore. Maybe this is who I was always meant to be. If you're reading this, stay away from this house. Don't come looking for me. Don't try to help. It's too late for that. Whatever you do, don't open the door. Don't let it out. Because once it's out, there's no putting it back.